Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Nerd Herd Comic Book Club, your number one stop for stellar reviews of volumes, arcs, or stories that us or yourselves choose. You can find us live every Wednesday on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, and the replay on all podcast networks. Take a seat, get yourselves and your opinions ready, as it's time to join the herd. But first, please put your hands together for your hosts, Shane, Phil, and Scott, as they kick off this week's discussion.
Hello, that's right. This week's discussion is live here on YouTube, and we are discussing probably one of the greatest ever books to ever be written in any shape or form, and that is Batman: The Dark Knight Returns from 1986, and that is written and penciled by Frank Miller. Inker is Klaus Janssen, and colors Lynn Farley, with letters by John Costanza. So that's what we're reading. I am, of course, joined by the usual suspects. Scott.
I thought you were going to troll me then and say Martin. Hello, everyone. How you doing?
I would have trolled you, but to be honest, I'm quite tired and forgetful, and I forgot all about it. I thought you've missed 6 weeks in a row or something. And of course, Shane.
Oh, hoi.
Who's here every single week, just like me. That's what I do. So yeah, that's what we're reading. Let's see who's in the chat live here on YouTube. We have Martin, it's weird seeing Martin on the other side of this, because you're usually here, and now he's in the chat. It's so weird. He's saying, hey, evening all. And then we have Kevin saying, hey everyone, slice and dice. Yeah, weirdly, that's one of the reasons why I always loved this book, is that phrase, slice and dice.
Is it?
Because it's used, I don't know why, it's so 80s. It just reminds you of like 80s New York or something, you know. But yeah, this is what we're reading this week. Let's get stuck into it. First of all, before I actually get into the synopsis, I want to ask you guys a quick question.
Okay.
And mainly Scott, how did you find this? Like the read?
I went on Google and I just typed in Batman, Dark Knight Returns, and I just read it. That's how I found it.
Okay.
You?
I was only asking because, I mean, it was definitely longer than I remember.
Jesus, mate, I was so like, I felt like you shafted me. I was hard done by, because you know, we don't like to get big picks. You know, we're busy people. We have our lives, we have our jobs, we have our families and stuff like that. So we like to keep things nice and concise. And then last week when we ended the show, at the end we were all chatting, and you just said, you know, it's only 4 issues. And I was like, oh, great, I've got time. I've got plenty of time to read. So as usual, on a Monday, I will always start my reads on a Monday for the Nerd Herd. And I see the contents page, and it's like, issue 1 starts at like page 8 of this book, and then ends at like page 60, whatever. And I was like, what? So like, there was about 2.5 issues, normal size, per issue of this. So we've essentially read like 10 issues, 8 to 10 issues, size-wise, like pages worth. So
it's like we've condensed 2 weeks into one almost.
Yeah. So I've read it. I'm done. I finished. Great. I'm happy. But I'm happy that I finished it. I'm glad I made it. I'm glad I had the time to read it. You know, I read issues 2 and 3 yesterday, and it took me like 2 hours. Like just under 2 hours, like 1 hour and 3/4 or something, to read those 2 issues. And I'm like, oh my god! Like, but I will say, whoever was buying this book, like when it first came out, was definitely getting their money's worth in terms of like words per pence or whatever it was, words per cent. Oh my god! Like, this was dense, really dense.
But the reason why I bring it up is because I know we have a group chat. Any folks who are interested in joining this group chat and WhatsApp, like, you know, hit us up. You can find details of that. Yep. But some of the guys in the group chat had mentioned how long it was and how far along they're getting along. So each person like updated their progress of where they are. And poor Connie, who's here most weeks, I don't think has it finished for the live show.
She fell asleep.
Yeah, she had a nap. So hopefully not a nap whilst reading the book. Like, she got so bored and tired she fell asleep. But anyway, let's get into the end of the discussion. So the synopsis: 55-year-old Bruce Wayne, now retired as the Batman. Gotham is in disarray and crime is worse than ever. So, young people doubt Batman was even real. And Bruce Wayne has a conflict from within, as if the Batman is like a separate entity and is trying to convince him that he needs to return. The book kind of shows the division of the people of Gotham between the public and as well as like authority figures and stuff who want Batman to help, and those who blame Batman on everything, including making excuses for like Harvey Dent and the Joker as the reason for their sickness and their crimes. Batman comes out of retirement and essentially sparks a revolution for justice. This moves Batman from man to an idea, in my opinion. Man to a living legend. Things get bad to worse. It all comes to a head with the possibility of the world-ending nuclear threat, which leads to a showdown of epic proportions and deadly consequences with the government stooge of Superman. And this is my favorite book of all time, to be perfectly honest. So this
Have you not read many? Or?
I've read a lot, and I will delve into why I think this. But yeah, we've already discussed the kind of length it took to read. Just on that, before we go ahead, actually, because I have read this multiple times, that dense story that we'll talk about that may seem irrelevant at the time, it builds the suspense, in my opinion. Because I've already read that, I can afford to skim through it more. If you know what I'm trying to say, because I'm picking all the notes I need to pick. Maybe that's why I had a more enjoyable time reading this than some people.
Maybe.
But we'll get into the crux and we'll just go straight. We'll get to the negative out of the way. Scott.
Oh, hey. I don't have direct negativity at this book. I think what my issue has been this whole time reading this was the fact that it was out in 1986, and it's the same. It's the same thing I feel about films that were out around that time as well. Like if you watch films now, there's a definite format, and I find they're easier to follow when I watch, really old films. Not really old films, just films from the 70s and 80s. I'm joking, Shane. When I when I watch films from that kind of era, I feel like there's a bit less hand holding going on in the films, and you're supposed to use your brain and go, oh, okay, that's what's happening, that's what's gone on between scenes and stuff like that. So I feel like this happens a lot. We are shifting through like multiple scenes on one page. We're going from like Batman and Robin, we've got something with the mutants, we've got like a news interview, we've got the news anchor saying something. We're going back and forth a lot in 1 or 2 pages. So this isn't a format that I'm used to. So I want to put that down as a reason why I struggled. Well, not struggled. I took so long to read it. But it is just dense as well. But I did find myself having to kind of reread things because I'm so used to a modern book now just leading me down one path. And if they do want to take me down another path, it's made quite clear. It's on the next page, and the top corner will say, New York. It'll tell me where I am, or meanwhile at the Batcave, whatever. So it's just, I just had to, I don't know, change my frame of mind into how to read this after getting through about half of issue 1, going, okay, this is big, this is dense, this I'm bouncing around a lot. That was, I agree. Yeah, no negativity.
And it is quite it's a word I always keep meaning to use, by the way, on this show. It is a little verbose.
Oh,
yeah, good.
Verbose.
Yeah, so nice. It is quite wordy, but it's almost like a prose novel. Like he's very descriptive in everything, and it can be a good thing or a bad thing. Depends what kind of like I say, it wasn't like a struggle, but it was dense to read and took a lot of time. And you almost need to set aside the time to read this. Like you've mentioned, every Monday night you would read the books for the Nerd Herd, assuming it's start. So you assume it's going to be the 4 or 5 issues, and you'll have it done in time. Where those 2 days can be a bit of a stretch for this.
Oh yeah.
It does say Kevin did say he took about an hour to read an issue. It's probably about the same for me.
Yeah.
We have Derpy Entertainment. I think he's a new face on the show.
Hello.
So one day this will get this adaptation in live action. And yes, Snyder was potentially discussed, but at this point he's off the table because he can't write or take source material seriously. And that's something we'll touch on, because all the Batman movies, there is a lot from this book is used, literally scene for scene at times, in the movies by Snyder and by Nolan and so forth. And Liam, the Funky Gibbons, is here. And don't worry, Liam, I already have your 4 to 10 noted down. And Martin said the animated movie was amazing and said really close to the source material, worth a watch. You haven't already seen it. I haven't seen that yet, and I keep meaning to watch it. Do you know what annoys me about that movie? It's in 2 parts. Like, even like the Blu-ray disc is 2 discs. It's like, come on, just put it in 1, please. But I am now in the mood to watch that. Shane, I'm assuming you've read this before in your years of reading DC books. What were your first impressions then, and maybe the first impressions with this reread?
First impressions were the same as last time I read it. The art is not my favorite art. I don't like the art in this book at all. I can't find anything in there that redeems the art for me. But the story is good. The story allows you to keep going, because if the story wasn't as good as it was, I wouldn't have read this the first time around. I wouldn't have continued after issue 1. I would have put this down and I would have just forgot about it. But the story is one of those, I know it's a what if story, but it's one of those what if stories that stick with you. We have a few of them that do that. You have your Elseworld stories, ones that you go back to again and again because they're just so good, like Speeding Bullet, where Superman lands in Gotham and he's taken in by the Waynes and he becomes Batman. And they're just those stories that stick with you. And this is one of them. I mean, this is obviously, it's been reprinted how many times? I think you've had the 15th anniversary edition, the 20, 25, 30. They just keep bringing out the anniversary editions. And then it got a new one recently, did it not? A new sequel, I think a couple years back. So it's on everyone's mind, but it's of its time. Obviously, you can tell it's very, very 80s in everything, from the way people speak to what they think the future would be. It's very that dystopia. It's very that RoboCop future, isn't it? With the mutants, they've all got the goggles on and the spiky hair. And they just look exactly like if you said to someone in the 80s, what will the future look like? They would describe this book. And it's, it's not a negative. It's something of the 80s. But I think I'm of a different mindset to Scott, where I'm used to reading books that don't constantly hold your hand. So this is how I started reading. So I enjoy this version of a comic book more than a new comic book that has to tell me everything. It has to tie up every loose end and it has to finish. This is just how comic books were written and should be written again. It's one of those stories, like, yes, we love Batman and we love Batman for being Batman, but what does happen when he's broken and he's finished? He tried to build this empire where Nightwing would take over from him, but Nightwing didn't, and look what happened to Gotham. So it's just so much fun, although it's got very dark, but it's fun at the same time.
Yeah, you mentioned that they're being quite dark, and to be perfectly honest, I just want to throw this out there, if I can find it. Is it fair to say 18+ warning? It does touch on some dark, very, very dark themes, and I'll put a trigger warning out there too. Touches on murder, obviously. Not just murder, but murder of children, and some more pretty dark stuff. So if you are going to read this for the first time, just be prepared that you might have your morals tested slightly with this. In terms of the art, Shane, I agree with you that the art isn't nice, But what I was trying to think today about how I could defend this art, because I kind of knew you were going to have something to say about it. I thought maybe Scott would too. I don't think I could imagine this story having this impact with different art and the iconic stature that this book has. Could you really we like Dan Moore, right? I would love Dan Moore, but if Dan Moore was to draw this book, do you think it would have the same kind of like impact?
No, I get what you're saying 100%. It can't be clean. It can't be tidy. It
gotta
can't
be
be
gritty.
nice.
Yeah.
It's got, but there are artists that are gritty.
Mhm.
You know, we read Batman Noel. That was a
Yeah.
gritty story, and the art in that is phenomenal.
Was it Lee
You know,
Mayo?
Yes.
Lieber
So
Mayo,
imagine
yeah.
Lieber Mayo drawing this. If he
That'd be
did
good.
it every page.
The only one I would think potentially could draw this instead of Frank Miller himself, and it's related to Frank Miller. It's the guy done Year One, which is David Kelly. I think his art style would lend itself to this as well. So if he had done this, perfectly fine. But I quite like the Frank Miller had done this because it is ugly. Like even like the Batman armored suit at the end just looks stupid and clunky, but it's brilliant in my opinion. I think it's fantastic. But it is quite dark and chaotic throughout. And the only negative I can find about the art is like some of the fight scenes were hard to follow at times. And you almost had to get to the end of the fight, realize what happened, and then go back to see it again or what actually did occur during the fight. There's one scene I remember where one of the mutants was in like an apartment and he was shot by one of the batarangs and the gun hit the glass and the glass broke. But I couldn't really tell where he was in the room, if you know what I'm trying to say. I had to go back and read that few little panels again. Things like that is my only negative to the art, but I think it looks wonderful. Connie's here. She's saying her usual Zup nerds.
Sup.
Connie has a better like signature welcome than I do. I just say hello every week. Sup nerds is far better what I can do.
Yeah.
And Kevin is saying the art is ugly, but Gotham is ugly, and I think that's why it's important too, because it does portray Gotham as being this. Who wants to live in Gotham when it looks like this and the things like this happen in Gotham? Why would you want to live there? It's almost like it's a punishment, like you're forced to live here for crimes you've committed. Scott, what do you think of the art?
It's all right.
It's all right.
Yeah, you've pretty much said everything else. It's not the most detailed. It's they don't really color outside the lines. I don't get that. But yeah, like I agree with what Martin has said there in the comments, saying like the art is worse in the smaller panels, but the full pages, they are better. Half a page, full page, whatever. Yeah, but there's so many small panels, and most of it is just the square TV screen shape with the news anchor with a light blue background and a little logo in the back, and that was like half the book, to be honest. But then then the backgrounds, then there's not much detail in the backgrounds of the panels. You'll have maybe a little bit of gradient, a little bit of I don't want to say watercolor, but it kind of looks like that a little bit in the pages I'm looking at here now.
It is watercolored, yeah.
Yeah, but everything looks a bit. Yeah, I think simple is a bit of a disserviced word.
Yeah,
but you know what I'm trying to get at. It's not insanely detailed, but I want to just reiterate the fact that it is Gotham. It is dingy. It is a gross place.
I think as well with the art from I read this a few years back with Frank Miller. He wanted like the 16 panel layout because it controlled the story more. Where you can see fit more detail in it. Because if you all the details in this book, if you had the regular size pages and panels, it wouldn't fit right. So they almost had to make each panel smaller so they could have some detail in it to fit the narrative, if you know what I mean. So he was able to control the story with the more panels, which makes sense. But I'm sure the artists are thinking, Christ, just give me a bigger blank page to draw on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are some really like, I'm looking through now, some really like close up images of like Batman's face and some other faces, and some of them look all right. Some, they look good, but some other ones just don't.
I also find with Batman at the start, he looks quite when he first returns. He's got the grey and the blue suit with the big yellow emblem,
Yeah.
but he looks cleaner. But as it goes on, as the lines are getting a bit more scratchy, a bit more messy, and I don't know if that's a thing to make like a deadline or something, or that's like a stylistic choice to make it like that.
Maybe.
Because with Batman, obviously, he thinks he can still do it, but you kind of find out that he can't really to the same degree he did before.
Yeah.
Liam is saying he enjoyed the art for the most part. It fit the book really well. However, there were times it wasn't good at all. And to be fair, there were certain things like the mutant leader. Do you have a name? Just the mutant leader. He just looked ridiculously stupid. Like, not even scary or anything. It just looked. I don't know how I would describe it. It didn't look weird. Ugly.
He looked like Kang's body from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
He did,
the guy that holds Kang in his stomach.
Yeah.
Krang, not Kang. Sorry. It's just.
Just maybe what I'm kind of touch on, he really likes the cartooning going on. The characters are caricatures rather than real people. Like, so the mutant leader, like, it's not a person, and it's no longer a monster either. It's just a weird, like, character of like a villain, I suppose, really. So yeah. But
it's just a shame because the story's really good, the pacing's really good. It's just, for me, that art is just. I would prefer this in a book, in a novel form. If I could just read this. And just add the descriptives, then absolutely fine. I think I would enjoy it a lot more if I didn't have to. It sounds really horrible to say, but if I didn't have to look at it and I could just read it, I think I would enjoy it a lot more. And that's not to say I don't enjoy it, but I would just enjoy it more.
Well, despite that, Shane, you did pick a page, which we can get into. So let's see what you have picked. What's your best of this bad bunch of artwork?
Well, I was talking to Scott beforehand, and I said I didn't pick a page because of its looks. I picked a page because of what happened on the page.
Okay, and here is your page.
Normally you pick a page because you see the page and you're like, "Oh, look at that! That's gorgeous! Look at the colors! Look at the lines! But for this book, I picked a page because I liked, because of what was happening, and it's not just Batman beating Superman, which is always fun to see. It's what he's saying to Clark as he's beating him. And as the countdown's getting closer and closer, and then Bruce's heart stops. And it's just like this amazing moment in the story where he's like, you need to know I beat you. For the rest of your life, you need to know I was the one that did it. And then Clark's like, your heart is giving out. He knows, and he just can't save his friend, and then his heart stops. And I just thought it was a really interesting page.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this page myself. And what I mentioned about the suit, do you know what I always think about whenever I see these boots? Do you remember those are they called stickle bricks? Like the old kind of blocks you have when you were a baby with like the kind of pointy bits off them? Do you know what I'm talking about? That's what I always think about whenever I see those boots. It's weird, I know, but I can't help it.
They're like golf shoes.
Yeah, a wee bit like that. Some goodies. Scott, let's see what you picked as well, shall we?
Oh, this is a really cool page. This is the page where Superman is trying to stop the missile from the Soviets. He doesn't stop it, but he diverts it. But the thing that got me on this page was obviously he's going up there to try and stop it. You see him then in the third panel. He is now in front of it trying to stop. And then the thing that hit me was just what it said in the middle there. So it says 20 million die by fire, and then ... if I am weak. And I'm like, man, that hits. Jesus. Like reading that. And the fact that is in smaller writing as well. And I was like, oh my God, this is it was just those 4 words. If I am weak, 20 million people die by fire. It was just really, I just found it really strong, really emotive, I think, as well. So, so yeah, that's why I picked this page, not for the art, for those 4 tiny words and the meaning behind them. It just blew me away. Just loved it.
Yeah, no, I do love the way they kind of, I used it a few times of the Superman, like all black with the cape. Love it.
Phil's just in awe. He's just like, he's just lost for words every time.
Stop
a page
dribbling.
comes up.
It's just, this is the thing. Let me show this again for the people watching live. Right, I get that the book overall looks a bit ugly, right? But even Commissioner Gordon there looks really good and really detailed. In the bottom panel, I just think sometimes the art gets a bit too much stick, but it's certainly artistic. It's artistic style they went for, but it's iconic. You know, I love it. I'm a big fan, and okay, what I will say, there weren't that many pages that stand out as like really fabulous pages, so I'll admit that as well. But I had to pick this. This is so ridiculous, by the way. This is where Batman is leading his revolution of mixture of the sons of Batman as well as the mutants he's recently converted that do good, and they're just riding in on horseback with their lassos. And it's so silly, so stupid, but it looks great and again really stand out. Like Batman horseback.
Is this silly and stupid?
Yes and no. Like, I mean, how often do you see Batman horseback riding?
Yeah, but how often is Batman in a scenario when there's no electricity around and all the cars are wiped out and stuff like that?
Well, the Batmobile's not a Tesla. It's petrol based.
Yeah, but it still runs on. Still has like motherboards and stuff. I'm not going to go into it. Whatever.
Yeah, what's the science behind it?
Yeah,
all the cars essentially were fried, weren't they? All the batteries were fried. So yeah, I get it. I just again, it's not something you normally see, but I thought that was great. Just catch up on some of the chat here before I lose myself. Actually, it's just Connie. And this has been on my TBR for ages, but now I'm skeptical. Have you started this book? Like, come on. I thought you had at least started it, because you can't leave the Wednesday to read this book.
Definitely not a Wednesday.
I would recommend it. When you see listen to this whole discussion, you'll want to read it, trust me. All right. So we did have some pages from some of the herd themselves. Martin, I sent in a page. I believe he's give reasons. Scott? Yes?
No. No. Wait. Yes, he has. He has. I've got it. He says, I just felt that this was a really powerful moment in the third act when Batman arrived to take back control of Gotham. Gave me the Mask of Zorro vibe, which also calls back to the night of his parents' death.
Yeah, quite poetic that way, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And I always thought that too. I think it was Batman Year One, or it might have been The Long Halloween, where there was a panel where Batman looked like Zorro, obviously, in the shadows of his dark mask. So that's obviously certainly like an inspiration for how Batman looks, I suppose, really. Did Kevin give reasons? Because he sent in a page.
Yeah, he did.
Nice.
So we got that page. Kevin's page. He says, my page pick for tonight, I like that we don't see Batman, just his silhouette. I think it adds to the fear the mutants are feeling. Also, the hand in the rain with the batarangs looks so cool.
Yeah.
Looks like claws, doesn't it? It looks like really scraggly claws.
It's really cool. I think that's a big part of the story. Obviously, when Batman's coming back, that he's there to instill fear, and he doesn't represent hope. He represents fear because Gotham has gone quite frankly gone to shit, and he needs to at least bring some sort of order to the chaos, and he does that through fear. And the fact that, as well, when it comes to the fight scenes and things, he doesn't talk. He has the inner monologue in himself. He doesn't talk to the bad guys until they're already beaten down and whatever else. He interrogates a few of them, but you don't see him actually having dialogue a lot. He just fights from the shadows, from the dark, And
It makes more sense than Spider-Man stopping every 3 minutes to have a chat with his bad guy.
yeah, you should flip that one day. It's like a what if story. You just flip that. That Spidey be the one who lurks in the shadows, and that Batman be the one with the quippy jokes. There's bound to be there's bound to be a version of Batman out there somewhere that has the same kind of idea as Spidey. I'm sure.
That'd be funny. If not, write it. We've made millions.
Yeah.
Such a great idea.
It is, yeah. So with fairly positive. We haven't been too negative about the art, I don't think. So we'll dive into the story, because I'm going to start with Shane mainly, because you have said that you really like this. So you would read it in novel form away from the art. Does this story have the kind of impact that maybe, I don't say that it deserves, but the impact it had on people and on the character and the movies and so on? Like, is this worth this is iconic stature?
It's worth, yes, 100%. This deserves its spot on the top list of comic books you should read if you're a comic book collector, if you're a fan, if you're a Batman fan, you should read this. But it doesn't have the same effect today reading it. Like, reading it this week, I felt completely different. It's not the book's fault. Again, like with last week's book with the week, it's not the book's fault. Times have changed. So the shock factors are all gone. You know, we see so much more now in our day-to-day life. Back in the 80s, when this came out, this must have just been like a comic book collector, like reading this is just like, wow. You know, like the same thing with The Killing Joke. They were amazing stories. It was something new, something you don't see in comic books. You see these things now, not so much in the main two, like DC and Marvel don't tend to do stories like this anymore. They're not brave enough anymore, but you get this in the indie titles. You get these kinds of stories. So it's a shame reading this for the first time today, you're not going to get the impact you would have. Like, I read this in the 90s, so I wasn't too far out from the 80s. So it still had that kick for me. I was still reading this and I was like, oh my God, Batman's old. Oh my God, Batman's weak. Oh my God, Batman's losing. Like, you didn't see that, you know, before then, Batman would always win. Every issue, Batman won. That's how the comic books went. It was Adam West, you know, Batman was Adam West before then. It was a slapstick and fun and colorful. And this is dark and this is gritty and no one's life worked out well. You know, Selena is now a madam at a brothel. Harvey Dent is now One Face, you know. The Joker is
face.
he's just face man now. He's just face. Like, you knew under those bandages, you knew it wasn't going to be the good side that he did. You knew it was going to be all bad side. But like, the Joker part of this was just amazing to read. Like with The Killing Joke, when you see that side of the Joker where he's evil and he's like really, really sinister. And in this, when he lures Batman and he gets Batman to fight him with everything he's got. Batman can't hold back anymore. He's too old. He doesn't have the youth that he used to give the Joker the leeway he used to. Now he has to fight. And he paralyzes the Joker thinking, that's it. I finally stopped him. And then the Joker kills himself in front of Batman just to twist the knife. And it's just like, even reading it again this week, that is my favorite part of the whole book. It's the Batman Joker part. Because back when this was written, the Joker wasn't overused like he is today. You know, he wasn't in everything. He didn't have his own title. He wasn't in everyone's book. He popped up sparingly. So to see him like this, the Joker in this is...
Yeah. Like, not being a Batman reader and only reading Batman for the Herd. Like, that... Like, I understood what was happening, you know. Joker's just killed himself, you know, 2 fingers up to Batman essentially, but it didn't hit me like it hit you. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, you know, like that's how I'm like, okay, cool. Not like I'm not blown, I'm not blown away by pun intended.
But
not blown away by this.
Where I took that in terms of like the Joker got satisfaction from doing it, as if like he knew Batman couldn't kill him. Like Batman, he'd said he'd built up to like, I have to do it. For the years I have not killed the Joker. I've let him live. He's went on to kill and kill again. And here we are once again. He's just shooting couples in the Love Boat and whatever else. And he has no, I have to kill him. and he still can't do it. And the Joker, even though he's paralyzed, enjoys that. And it just adds another layer for me is how sick the Joker is. But again, with this story overall, with the Joker, how it's used, it's like he's essentially, was he a mute? He didn't speak, sure he didn't, in the asylum, essentially. He didn't do anything until Batman returned, and that just sparked him out of it. And all of a sudden he's on a TV show and he's free now and killing again. It's like, it's that kind of trope where like Batman and the Joker almost like need each other type of thing. And again, what brings on the craziness? Is it they were there before? Why we need Batman, or does Batman bring it out in people? And I just think that the way that's used is brilliant. But that death was again strange. I don't think if you're paralyzed you'd be able to twist your own neck essentially or do it, or But it's a comic book. It's cool.
Yeah, I think maybe if you wanted to maybe twerk that scene, just tweak it a little bit. So you have him paralyzed. Batman leaves. Commissioner Gordon finds him, and Commissioner Gordon just kills him.
Because he's also wanted to kill him, yeah.
And he just goes for Barbara, and he just kills him.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Or he just whispers one bad day and just kills him. Like just a little nod to. I know it's not out yet, but
we can't do that then.
I was going to say the killing joke came after this.
I just realised.
But however, if this is all a plan, like they plan these stories ahead of time, they could have done that. And then you'd be like, what does that mean? This is for Barbara. Yeah. And then 3 years later, the killing joke comes out.
And then you read it and you're like, that's why Commissioner Gordon killed Joker.
Oh, that means so cool. This is why people need to collaborate and talk to one another within DC and Marvel. Plan these things ahead, because as a fan, you would cream your pants and stuff like that. You really would.
I was shocked. I'm not sure if they said at any other point in the book, but I was shocked to find out at the end Bruce Wayne was only 55.
Yeah, he looked older.
Man looked like late 60s, like it was like 55. I was like, get away. He wasn't 55.
But I thought this too, but what I thought recently, do you ever see when you look back in photographs from like the 80s and people who are like our age, they look really old? So that's where I am with it. You're right, he looks too old to be 55. However, when you see people who are like approaching 40 in the 80s, see photographs of them all, they all look really, really old. So that's why I'm giving this a bye ball. But I agree with you, he looks too old. Okay. He looks like he's in his 60s, definitely.
All right. Can we talk movie references?
Yes. I have a few written down myself.
I was interested to hear that you saw some from the Christian Bale films. But I noticed, I think when he's wearing the big suit, is that the Ben Affleck one? It's Superman versus Batman. I noticed that. That was a really cool scene. That fight, and to be fair, they were quite accurate with the suit in the film. When they it looked like thick.
I think with the movie, had they deviated too much, there would have been a bit of outcry from like the comic elites. Like, oh, you can't do that. That looks completely different. So I think that's why they tried to keep it close to what it was.
And I'm kind of glad they did. Now that I've seen the source material, I'm glad they did. And I didn't think in the film it looked out of place either. I think it was all right. And then the other one I noticed was the only one I thought of, I didn't know if it was a direct, link to this book, but when Joker went on TV, reminded me of the Joaquin Phoenix, the Joker film. Is that based off this? I think so.
I think my take on that after reading this today, because obviously I hadn't, like, the Joker movie isn't long out, but I think it's obviously come from that, because after that, after the that broadcast, and when he shot Robert De Niro character, that's when the chaos ensued, type of thing. So that's I think it maybe kind of taken something from this, but they may not have. It's just hard. It's hard to think.
It's true.
But there's other things like so if you remember in Batman vs Superman, whenever he was going to get Clark Kent's mum, and she was being held hostage with a guy with a flamethrower, and he comes through the wall, holds the big gun, and he's like, "I'll kill her. Believe me, I'll kill her." And then Batman shoots him and goes, "I believe you." So that was in this book. Whenever they were holding it was a kid they were holding hostage instead.
Yeah.
At this point. And the other one, one of the main ones I found was the rookie cop when Batman made his return, and like the older cop was like, "You're in for hell of a show tonight." And again, that's just from the moment in the Nolan movie where Batman returns. The lights go out and then the music hits. It's great. And I think, because I read this book for the first time in and around the Nolan movies, to be honest. And I'm not too sure if it was before that movie or after the movie, but since I've read it again a couple of times, I always kind of think back to that. That's so cool. Like that's so cool. I love that. And yeah, even to the point actually with the death scene of his parents at the start, where he's having the flashbacks, it's very close to Snyder's opening scene for Batman vs Superman. Like this, just the kind of the father clenching his fist about to throw a punch at the guy who shot them. It's just very close to that, and there's no question. All the guys who made Batman refer to so many books, and it's this, Long Halloween, and Year One. That's like the three main books for the references for just cool stuff, because they're all quite iconic.
Yeah, and it's about time they stopped now and just, there are 80 years of Batman stories you can pick from. Yes, they're iconic stories, but branch out. We don't want the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, but you want to pick from the best, don't you? You don't want to pick from the worst book.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You've only seen each of those scenes once, if you know what I mean. So it's not like that they've overused the scenes in the movies. But
how many times have you seen Bruce's parents die on screen?
Oh yes, fair enough. But in terms of the Snyder versions, like it was pretty accurate scene for scene with this. And I think that's another thing too with this book, which I find with the 16 panels, it's almost like it is a slow burn movie. Like some of the like the Joker is, like the Batman vs Superman is, like a slow burn heading towards its crescendo at the end. Martin's saying that Batfleck was based on this version of Batman.
Cool.
But ironically, Ben Affleck probably is. He must be around 50, mid 50s in real life, surely. So you think of Ben Affleck now playing Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
looks a lot younger than this version of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, but the magic of Hollywood.
Exactly. What I liked as well, again, Batman Year One, another iconic Frank Miller story, another iconic Batman story. Year One is, I think Year One came out after this. This came out before Year One, but with Year One, you see him having to like learn the ropes. Through the fighting, develop his fighting style, develop his technique, how to bring down these criminals. And with this, it mimics that. Like he has to relearn. He's been so far out of it, 10 years out of it. Yeah. He's older, he's slower, so he has to almost relearn how to take people down. And obviously, you see that with the mutant leader, and he gets his ass kicked first time round, and then has to come to the second showdown, and he realizes he's stronger than me, he's faster than me, but he's a bit dim. So I'll have to beat him with my brain type of thing. I like that you see this, like the progression of him getting better and getting back into the way of things.
And that's very Nolan Batman, isn't it? Bane beats him, he comes back, saves Gotham.
That's true. Liam was saying, why not pick from the worst book and I make something good of it?
Because Hollywood doesn't have any credibility anymore.
Well,
they don't have any imagination or talent.
My answer.
They can only take good stories and make them bad.
My answer to that was going to be, because even if you do that, people will still moan that it's not accurate to the books.
Well, this is the thing then. So why not? So you have a comic book, which is essentially a script, with pictures of where people need to
storyboarded.
Stand.
Yeah,
just do it. If you just do that, like if you grabbed Hush, just say for instance, you grabbed the comic book Hush, and you recreated that scene for scene in live action. And if anyone moaned, you go, well, you wanted Hush, you got Hush, there's Hush. Yeah. You couldn't moan. But the fact is they then have to change things. Like in the cartoon for Hush, they then made Hush the Riddler in the cartoon for I don't know what reason. Like, it completely changed the character.
Spoilers.
Why? Oh, yeah, for a 3-year-old film. But why change the source material? If you can't improve on it, which you can't, because that's why you pick the source material, because it's the best of the best, Just do it. Just do that. You have your storyboard, your script, and your characters sorted. Just do it.
I suppose, I mean, with Hush is slightly different, but with something like this, you couldn't obviously do this word for word, panel for panel, because it's obviously set in the 80s. You have Ronald Reagan and the Cold War kind of issue. So unless you were kind of making the movie to be set in the 80s, you could do it.
You just update the president to whoever's president at the time, or you create a president. Doesn't have to be a real president, and then you create a war with some country that you've made up. It's the DC universe. Every country's made up, so just make a country up. It could be, where Black Adam's from, Kandak, whatever you want. You can update things like that, but you can keep everything else as it's meant to be.
Well, that's never going to happen because they've essentially buried that movie and Kandak now. We'll never see Black Adam ever again. Well, that's good or bad, I don't know. Scott, you were going to say something before I kind of interrupted, I believe.
Yeah, I forgot now, though. Totally gone. Oh,
this is why we shouldn't interrupt people.
Are we going to talk about Carrie Kelley? Sorry.
Carrie Kelley?
Carrie Kelley.
Robin?
Yeah, Robin. Yeah.
She's great. I thought she was fantastic.
She was good. I think a very good substitute.
Yeah. You didn't like her, Shane?
I did. I despise the character of Carrie Kelley. I hate everything about her. She's a 13-year-old. She has no business doing what she's doing. I have no time for her whatsoever. And before anyone says anything, it's not a sexist thing, because I love Stephanie Brown as Robin when she did her little short stint as Robin. I think that storyline was fantastic. It's just Carrie Kelley. I have no time for her whatsoever. And then the fact that she's 13 and Batman's like, yeah, you can come into war with me and put your life on the line. This 13-year-old girl.
The thing that bothered me there, it was like, you're a good soldier. Good job, soldier. And I'm like, as a kid, man, like, why are you calling this girl who's like decided to help you out just because she fancied helping you out? And now you're kind of going, good job, soldier. It's weird.
For me, that tells me almost like the desperation that Batman has. Like, he's a bit insecure maybe about what he can actually do, because like I say, 10 years out, and obviously with the news reports and things like that, like half the city are blaming Batman and half are supporting him, so he doesn't really have anyone else. Obviously Alfred's an old man, so he sees this girl who has the motivation, I suppose, to do something. The fact that she done off her own bat, get to suit herself and started jumping buildings and saving Batman shows that she has like the guts to do it. And I think that's why, because it is a 13-year-old girl. It's odd the fact he calls her soldier and he's willing to let her face this, but I think it's one of those ones too that she doesn't have good parents really. I think they're just more concerned about getting stoned or whatever they were doing. So maybe he thinks that, well, it's the way it ended. She's with him, underground type of thing. So she's left her parents, and this is her life now. And I think she probably feels it's for the better. And he's like, yeah, it is. We can do some real good work here. But I like Carrie Kelley. I really do. I don't know why. Like, it's like, has she ever been used anything else, Shane? Does she get?
She's in Gotham Knights at the moment, the new CW TV show.
Oh, really? Okay, I'm not going to watch that, but yeah. But
Carrie Kelley has popped up in a few, like not as Robin, like the character of Carrie Kelley has been in some Batman stories, I think with Blue Jay and stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't think I've never read them, to be honest, but it's one of those ones with this being an Elseworld or What If. It's like you wouldn't expect to see her used. However, whilst this is a what if, essentially this is the future. Like, we haven't had, like, Batman doesn't get older, so this all could be completely canon in the Batman universe, really, which I like. That's why I go with this.
Thinking about that as well, like, I was thinking, what happens in the Dark Knight's Metal story, and it's like Batman is supposed to be like this, I can't remember how it goes. It wasn't like someone from in the universe has been watching over him this whole time and has been stopping him from dying and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you know what I'm on about. Like, Batman is like, he's the guy, Hopefully I'm right. But I was reading this, thinking about that metal story, and going, like, if this is canon, if this is in the timeline, surely he would know how like invincible he is, and like this thing won't let him die.
Yeah,
That's it.
I think I know what you're touching with the DC metal thing, but
Yeah.
I'm not as Barbatos or something like that's why all the Batman
Barbatos.
version,
Yeah.
that's why all the versions are like the Flash version of Batman, the Joker version of Batman, type
Red
of thing.
Death.
Yeah, because it all centers around like Batman is the center of the multiverse or the omniverse, whatever it is now.
Yeah.
The Red Death is in the final season of The Flash.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
No,
Played by Javicia Leslie, who played Batwoman.
Oh, right.
Did anyone notice when the mutant leader was beating Batman with a crowbar, how very Joker Jason Todd that was?
I never tried under that, but now you've mentioned it. It is.
All I saw was the Joker beating Jason Todd to death.
But this Batman is haunted by Jason Todd. That's why he hung up the cowl, I suppose. So yeah, but never at the time didn't really notice it. And Martin's saying that's not Red Death. So who is it? Or is he like that's not Red Death? That's not my Red Death. Is that what he's saying?
Oh, right. Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe.
Liam is agreeing with me with Carrie Kelley. It's both desperation, but also ensuring Robin is aware of the danger they're dealing with. Because I like their relationship, the way he was telling her, like, you're going to get fired. Do this wrong. Don't do what I say. You're fired. But he never fires her because she always like finds a way to do the right thing to either save him or save other people or whatever. That's why I liked her. But I think I wouldn't like her to be used too much. I just like her in this story, and I don't want to see too much of her elsewhere. But I thought she was really cool. I really enjoyed her character.
And also, can we just acknowledge that Batman was totally going to lose that fight if a one-armed Green Arrow hadn't have saved his butt?
But
yeah.
this is true.
that was part of the plan, though, wasn't it?
It was the plan. He needed that to happen.
Exactly. He needed that to happen because he was going to lose if Green Arrow. So Green Arrow really beat Superman.
But he wouldn't have put himself in that situation if he wouldn't have planned.
Exactly. And you just kind of touched on something there too. Like sometimes I think that if you talk to people who aren't Batman fans or who know who Batman is, they almost like, who's better, Batman or Iron Man? Because they're just two rich guys with gadgets and tech and a plan. Like I think that like really like you're understating what Batman actually is, and this book highlights exactly what Batman is. The idea that he isn't just the man who fights crime. He's an idea because I mentioned earlier on, like he instills the fear. He's not a hopeful person. Like they need this version of Batman. And I've written this down, and we all know this line from the movies. He's the hero Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs right now. So we'll hunt him because he can take it. Because he's not our hero. He's a silent guardian, a watchful protector, a dark knight. Like, this is why I love this book, because he is exactly what Gotham needs. Because the president, for example, and Supes is his stooge, the president is asked the question about the Batman, and he pawns it off to like the senator, who pawns it off to the mayor, who pawns it off to the commissioner, like the new commissioner. And it's just like no one's willing to do the right thing to save Gotham. And they all kind of think that Batman maybe is what they do need, but we need to hunt him at the same time. Like that's why they hunt him in this book, because he is a criminal, but yet they're not able or willing to do the jobs that needs to be done to bring order to Gotham. And that's why I love this book, and that's why I always loved that line from the movies, because it just, for me again, adds more layers onto what actually Batman is. He's not a rich man with gadgets and a plan. He's more than that. Hence why you see him running on horseback with essentially bad guys like the mutants. And I loved the way they turned as like the sons of Batman, and then the ones that were left just turned straight away. Like, we actually need you here. No guns, please. And they just followed line. That was great. Love it. Oh, I'm gonna cry.
This has been a really nice talking to Phil about his favourite book.
Yeah, I even did a little bit of research about it. It is cute, I think. Thanks. I'm gonna cry now, but no, I've done a little research, and I found a quote from Frank Miller, and basically it's a one-line thing. I kind of adds what I just said. Like, Batman's interesting because he straightens the world out. He brings order to a very chaotic world, and that adds to what I was just saying. Like, Gotham is a complete mess. There's no one going to help them. Superman won't do it because he only goes where he's told to go by the president. They are washing their hands with it. That's why this version of Batman, he could beat people to a pulp, and even the fact that the Sons of Batman. I think there was a scene where they mentioned like somebody stole magazines and candy, and they chopped their arms off. And it's like, well, he obviously had to step in and stop that. But like, that's Gotham for you. There's nothing you can do. And then Batman obviously realizes, we need you for this. No guns, please. And they all come full line. And by the way, that Sons of Batman's another nod to the Nolan movies. If you remember the guys with the hockey pads in The Dark Knight.
Hockey pads.
Yeah. That's. I'm assuming that's where this has come from as well. The people who are the Batman Knights or whatever they call themselves. So yeah, I love this. Like I say, Batman.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So yeah,
Nice.
Batman instills the fear, and he goes underground because spoiler, he doesn't die. He fakes his death, and Superman knows it, and he leaves him. He says, "That's good. You go and do your thing," and he goes underground to what's the word? Like inspire or encourage or breed a new, a new kind of army of heroes, essentially. So yeah, we're 56 minutes in. I think I could talk about this book for another couple of hours, but
Nope.
we're not going to. Yeah, I mean, it's good because we've covered this book. It'll probably take 4 hours to read in 56 minutes. That's good.
Yeah.
If only it took 56 minutes to read. But on that, because I have reread this book, a lot of the stuff when it talks about, like, even like the weather being hot and like things going on in Central America and all, like, it talks a lot about that stuff. But for me, that just builds the tension of the overall story. Because I have read that before, I do just kind of not flick through it, but I don't take it in. Where I think you, Scott, as a first-time reader, maybe you're trying to take it all in because it might mean something down the line.
It's quite overwhelming, I think.
Yeah. So I get that, and that's fair. But I think it's time for our final thoughts and scores. Folks in the chat who have read along, please pop your score into the chat. We will total them up and add them in amongst ours, and we will see where it comes on the all-important leaderboard. So let's get to our verdicts. Scott, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Like I said just now, a little bit overwhelming. But I totally agree with what Shane said earlier about him wanting it to be in a novel, and he would read it in a novel. I think this would be absolutely perfect as a novel, considering how dense it is for a comic. I mean, I don't know what they were like back then in the 80s, but I think for me, from a modern standard, from a modern perspective, it's a lot. And yeah, I think I was kind of reading it, trying to remember it all, because you are hoping that you're going to get some little breadcrumbs from issue 1 or issue 2, and you'll see it in the end issue. Art was good. I think it matched the tone. Not my favorite sort of art, but yeah, it definitely matched the kind of vibe the book was going for. But yeah, the story was really strong. My favorite part in particular was when the bomb went off and everything in the city shut down, and then that's when just the chaos began, and it was interesting to see what was happening and how people were reacting. And I think it was written quite accurately, in my opinion, to how people would react, how a city would react, and what would happen in a city as well. So I quite like that. The nods to all the villains in there. One Face and and the Joker and the mutants. They were interesting as well. Enjoyed it. I'm gonna give it 7.5.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right, we have one score in the chat so far. So guys, this is your chance. Get it in. Shane, take it away.
I did really enjoy this, rereading it, and like I've already said, it's of its time, but I'm of its time, so I appreciate older comic books a little bit more, I think, than newer readers. This is one of those stories you can read again and again, and it's nice and compact. It is a single story. I know it ends on a what's Batman going to do next, but it's it's a compact story. It's one whole story, start, middle, and an end, and you get things that happen and things that change the entire universe. Two-Face is now One-Face. The Joker is now dead. Batman is now presumed dead, and his identity's out. So like all these things, they have consequences, which is nice to see in a comic book, because that's something that's lacking in a lot of books that we read today, is consequences. So it's hard to score it, because I want to score it. Like before I started reading, I was like, I already had a score in mind because I'd read it, and then I read it again, and I think my score changed rereading it. So I don't know if it's fair or not that my score maybe went down half a point rereading it. And initially I had a 9, but I've gone down to an 8.5. Sorry, Phil.
Okay, we used to be friends. It's okay. No, that's great. This is the thing. Like I've said every week, I always check Goodreads after I've read it. After I have my score nailed down, I always check Goodreads, and there's a big contrast. Some people score this really high, and some people score this really low. And it's so me loving this book as much as I do, I was never worried about it. Like before, I would have been really defensive about the books I picked and whatever else. But this one, no, I'm fairly confident that it'll not affect me and how I score it. So
he nervously laughs.
Yeah, I know. I'm just no more low scores now, guys. I've got a good average here. Please don't ruin it. I'm kidding. So basically, for myself, I've said, I make no apologies for, I've said for months and maybe years that anyone's ever asked me that if you had to ask me to pick one book as my favorite, if you had to say you can only read one more comic from now to the rest of your days, what would it be? And it would be this. Kevin's mentioned his comments there. He's read it for like the 12th time, and he finds new stuff. I haven't read that many times, but I do still find new stuff and kind of new meanings and things that maybe have appeared in movies or shows, whatever. I think, oh yeah, I remember that was used elsewhere. And things like that are really great. As I say, Batman isn't just a rich guy with gadgets and a plan. I think this adds layers to it. And I think if you ask people overall, comic book fans, like who's your favorite character, you'll get a vast variation, of course, but Batman would likely top that poll. And that's because of books like this and books like Year One that add these layers and make people love them. Like I don't think there's another story for a single character out there that adds enough to that character than this does to Batman, in my humble opinion. So yeah, I love this. However, my score might surprise somebody, because I haven't gone for a perfect 10, because I was torn between going for a 10, if I'm being brutally honest. Like I've scored Canto a 10. So I can score my favorite book less than that, but I've marked it down because I couldn't recommend this to people as like here, go read this book. I think you have to have a bit of like comic book education to read this in a way, in my opinion. Like you couldn't just dive into this. Same like Watchmen, you can't just go into this as one of your first books ever. And the art is quite ugly, although it does suit the story. I did find some of the panels were a bit chaotic to try and interpret what was actually going on. So I've marked it down a half a point to 9.5. So the scores we have in, we've got 4 in total. Tottenham Gaming has jumped in the last minute of his score. Thanks for that, because it's a good one. 9 out of 10. Kev has obviously mentioned this is a 10 out of 10. This is probably the 12th time he's read this book and still noticing new things. Great. 10. I have that. Martin is saying this is my first read, but I have seen the animated movie, so I knew the story. I enjoyed the art, but it had its issues. The story was the star of the show, an amazing Batman story. It's an 8 from him. And Funky Gibbons, Liam has come on 8. He's doubled his usual score for me. I had to delete this 4 and put the 8 in, to be honest. So with with Tottenham Games 9, Kev's 10, Martin and Liam's 8, that gives the herd average of 8.75. Add that to my 9.5, Scott's 7.5, and Shane's 8.5. It gives us an overall average of 8.6. Do you concur, Scott?
I do. It all checks out.
Nice. So, where does that come on the leaderboard? I think it's doing okay. Let's see. Straight in there, joint second. Is that right?
Yeah.
King is nice. So, Friday has now left the top 10.
Unlucky.
And it will jump into this second half of the table, which you can see. At least this beat Democracy. I'm happy with that.
Close.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It was close.
But yeah, I'm delighted with that score. Like I say, I love this book. It's my favorite book. It does kind of change sometimes with other ones, but this, after reading this again, love this. So I'm delighted I read it. I'm delighted Scott didn't score as 2. I was worried slightly about a very low score, but 8.6 is extremely strong. So well done. So coming up the rest of this week ahead, we have tomorrow we have Kevin, his draw along, and I wonder who Kevin could be drawing this week. That's right, how to draw Batman. So definitely stay tuned for that. I believe that's at the usual time, Scott. It's 7 p.m.
Yes, correct.
But of course, you can watch any time after 7 p.m. Just it's going live at 7, so set your alarms. And then next week, I wonder what we have next week. Let's just find out. Scott, I believe it's your pick next week. Do you want to take it away and let our listeners know what we're reading?
Yes, I cannot wait. This is, for me, an instant modern classic, I think. The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, an incredibly moving story. We're going away from superheroes and all the fighty nonsense for a bit and just going into some philosophical, thinky goodness with The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, written by Ram V. Yeah, I'll tell you next week what I said to him at Thought Bubble last year.
Oh, nice.
How many issues is it?
4 or 5. Like normal size this time.
Please.
Yeah, normal size, 20 odd pages per. Yeah, all good.
I'm looking forward to it myself. I bought the trade paperback a while back and haven't read it. But Shane, I'll be interested to see what you think with the art style next week. If you thought this week was ugly, what do you see next week?
One more thing as well, for everyone who's watching, just to put it in your calendars, please mark a date for the 31st of March. We have decided that we're going to be doing a halfway show special. It'll be just like our end of the season show, which we will still be doing, but we're going to do another one halfway. So next week will be our halfway show for the season, next Wednesday, and then the Friday after, we're going to do a roundup of the season so far.
Yes, looking forward to that. Because I think we've read some amazing books, and we couldn't just have one show to talk about, 12 months of books. We needed to break it up into 2. So yeah, halfway point next Friday. Well, do you say the time there, Scott?
We haven't set a time yet.
Oh,
we'll tell everyone next week.
We'll let you know next Wednesday, certainly. That's all the that's all we need to do now, I think. And there's one more thing, isn't there?
Yeah.
Let's get your waves out.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Love you.